Live from Studio 5 in New York City, this is the News at 6.
Friday night, good evening, everyone. I'm Ernie Anastas, and thank you very much for joining us. Our news begins tonight with the death of TV host and celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain. Sadly, he took his own life at a hotel in France. We'll talk more about the importance of mental health in just a minute with a top psychologist. But right now, let's get more on this tragic story. Liz Dahlem is joining us with the very latest on this sad story, Liz.
Ernie, good evening to you. He changed the way we looked at food. Anthony Bourdain would take his viewers along for the ride, traveling around the world, trying different dishes from countless different countries. The 61-year-old was in eastern France shooting an episode for the 12th season of his show and committed suicide in a hotel room.
Cheers.
Any more of this?
Anthony Bourdain tweeting this video just days ago. He's seen smiling, watching his director girlfriend, Asia Argento, dancing with friends while working on an episode of his CNN series, Parts Unknown.
All right, Liz, thank you very much for that. Joining me right now to talk more about this is Dr. Ben Michaelis, noted New York psychologist. Good to have you here. Unfortunately, we've talked before, and it's a sad story. First Kate Spade, now we're talking about, Anthony Bourdain. It brings to light, obviously, this whole need to really talk more about mental health and what we can do.
Yeah, it is really sad, Ernie. Unfortunately, it seems that the only times we really talk about mental health issues are after a tragedy like this. And it's something that we need to be talking about as a country on an ongoing basis, not just when something bad happens. We need to be reaching out and making this much more part of the national conversation.
And unfortunately, many times we hear about these people who have been tormented. They had difficulties. They did not seek help, or it was too late.
Yeah, and a lot of times when people, are very successful, they actually become more isolated because they feel embarrassed or they're self-conscious about reaching out and getting the help that they actually need.
Dr. Ben, people have annual physicals, right? And what about an annual mental checkup? How about that idea?
An annual mental exam is a great idea. It's something that is really short, can be done in 5 or 10 minutes tops, and it would really prevent a lot of the suffering that's going on. Just very simple, a number of questions, a couple of screens, just checking in on someone, because we don't really know.
That could make a huge difference. Think about it.
Absolutely.
We also hear a lot of things about, suicide pacts. You hear in music lyrics, almost glorifying suicide. Address that issue and how we should handle this.
It's a very tough issue. It's very tricky because, when people like Kate Spade or Anthony Bourdain unfortunately take their own lives, we need to report on it because we feel connected to them, but it also in some ways can feel like it's glorifying suicide.
Yes.
And that can lead to a rash of things. Unfortunately, there can be pacts, and there can be a wave of copycat suicides after these things happen.
And oftentimes we hear about, the mix of drugs and alcohol involved. Many times you're watching television and they're advertising a lot of drugs, and then they have a disclaimer and talks about, side effects, including thoughts of suicide. What do you think about that?
This idea of something being a side effect, it's an effect. There's no such thing as a side effect. There are other effects. There are unintended effects, like some of the things that you're describing, but these are very powerful drugs. And as you may know, the statistics on the national suicide statistics came out just yesterday. They showed a 30% increase in suicide rates in the United States, with almost a 60% increase in states like Vermont, New Hampshire, and North Dakota, where there's really the opioid epidemic is happening.
So in a nutshell, if someone feels they need help, or if they see someone who has a need for it, do something about it.
Yeah, reach out, talk to people. Loneliness is actually an epidemic. People feel so isolated, so alone. If you see someone that's just having a bad day, reach out to them, ask them. Just that connection can make a big difference in people's lives.
It can really make a difference. Thank you, Dr. Ben Michaelis, for joining us tonight, okay?
Thank you.